I walked into the admin office with a tray of snickerdoodles and a stack of handwritten thank you cards. I even wore the dumb little school pin they gave me 20 years ago. 31 years as head of curriculum at Oak Ridge Unified, and I figured I'd at least get a lunch or maybe a cake with my name misspelled on it. Instead, I walked into Russell Greaves standing by the copier like he owned the building. He smiled before I even said anything. That smug, brand new blazer kind of smile. He held a manila folder in one hand and extended it toward me like he was offering a gift. "Joanne," he said, nodding. "Good morning. Can we chat for a minute?" I set the cookies down on the edge of the reception counter. Nobody else in the office even looked up. Russell gestured toward the little conference room to the left. I followed him in, shut the door behind me. No greetings. No, thank you for your service. Just the sound of the air conditioner clicking on. "This is coming from the top," he started, flipping open the folder. "We're undergoing district-wide streamlining, and unfortunately, your position is one of several being sunset, effective immediately." I stared at him, no emotion on my face, not even a blink. I just looked at that cheap printed letter like it was a menu I hadn't asked for. "You're serious," I said finally. "I really am sorry," he said, nodding like he was used to the speech. "It's about structural efficiency. Has nothing to do with your performance." I picked up the letter, read it all the way through while standing. Nothing personalized, nothing referencing the years, the policies I wrote, the student turnarounds I led. Just a bullet point summary and a signature at the bottom from someone I'd never met. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. "Is that final?" I asked, folding the letter in half. "I'm afraid so." I nodded. No tears, no words wasted. I walked out without a word. The cookies sat untouched by the front desk. I didn't bother saying goodbye to anyone. They didn't look up from their screens anyway. At the exit, I pulled my faculty badge off the lanyard and scanned it at the side door like I always did. The light blinked green, the latch clicked open, and I stepped outside into the parking lot. I didn't turn back. I didn't slam the door. I just walked away, the badge still in my hand. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of black coffee and a stack of paper that had yellowed around the edges. My name was scrawled across half the pages in red pen. "Revise this, combine units. Too soft, add rigor." Every note, every chart, every hand-drawn benchmark map was something I'd built from scratch back when we didn't even have digital archives. I ran my fingers across one of the lesson plans. U.S. History, Week 7. The original unit I wrote on labor movements, preloaded now in half the district's high school syllabi. Most teachers didn't even know where it came from, but I did. I built Oak Ridge's entire academic framework from a file cabinet and a whiteboard. Back when there wasn't a roadmap, just a list of state standards and too many students with too few chances. I still remembered the first time I stayed overnight to finish a curriculum overhaul. I slept on the floor in the staff room with a bag of pretzels and a sticky note on the printer that said, "Do not unplug." That kind of work didn't show up in anyone's evaluation. 17 years ago, I found the first cracks. A string of oddly high grades in a sophomore algebra class. Didn't make sense on the assessment curve. I flagged it, documented everything, and sent it straight to the board. Nothing happened. A week later, the file was marked, "Reviewed, no action taken." A colleague pulled me aside and said, "You want to keep your office, don't dig." I kept digging, quietly, documenting, saving, watching how certain names never faced consequences. 7 years after that, I was asked to massage the college acceptance numbers for a presentation to the county. They wanted double counts, kids with community college offers listed alongside their university acceptances. I said no. A month later, my daughter, top 5% straight A's, glowing rec letters, lost her district-backed scholarship. The selection committee revised its priorities. No appeal. That's when I started building the protocol. It wasn't revenge. I didn't want to sabotage anything, but I wasn't going to hand over a clean set of keys to people who'd trashed the place the second I walked out the door. The system we used, EdgePath LMS, was bloated with vendor plugins and half-tested features. So I wrote a local override module and buried it behind 4 admin checkpoints, named it Curric Archive Legacy Pathing. Harmless sounding. The function was simple. If I voluntarily deactivated my credentials before my end date, the whole district would transition cleanly. But if I was removed without advance notice, the core structure would lock and demand a specific chain of authentications, ones only active employees could provide in real time. It wasn't elegant, but it was airtight. And legal. I checked that part twice. I had it reviewed by an IP lawyer out in Ventura under a personal NDA. Every time I updated a lesson framework or evaluation standard, it fed through that silent gate. Nobody noticed because nobody ever asked how the system stayed synced. That morning, with the district probably running business as usual like I'd never existed, I stared at the protocol's handwritten logic tree. I hadn't looked at it in years, but I knew every decision point by heart. Exit on terms of integrity, I'd written at the top in blue marker, not revenge, just a line that wouldn't bend. I set the lesson plans down and grabbed another binder from the shelf, one with network logs, version histories, internal memos I'd printed over the years. I didn't need them for anything. I just wanted to remember I hadn't imagined it all. I glanced over at the clock. It was just after 8. And if they'd gone through the system thinking I'd left quietly, they'd already tripped the gate. The first time I met Russell Greaves, he wore a lapel mic for a staff meeting of 30 people. No cameras, just him and a PowerPoint full of arrows and buzzwords. Educational synergy, performance agility, future forward integration. He was 38, looked younger, with a perfect haircut and teeth that probably cost more than my first car. Came from some charter group in Houston that bragged about turnaround speed, like schools were fast food chains. He shook my hand like he already had a plan to phase me out. "You're the cornerstone here?" he said, gripping my hand just long enough to make it weird. "We're lucky to have your wisdom on this journey." He said that kind of thing a lot, in front of cameras, at board luncheons, during those nauseating superintendent updates on YouTube. "Joanne Stevens is the backbone of our academic vision," he once said at a district gala, standing 2 feet from me with a glass of wine and a tight smile. "Her experience is irreplaceable." Behind closed doors, I heard different words. Legacy block. Static asset. Obstacle to modernization. He started flooding every meeting with consultants half my age who spoke in hashtags and listed disruption as a strategy. They showed up with branded lanyards, pitching ideas with glossy charts and 0 classroom hours. I'd show up to curriculum meetings only to find my name left off the agenda. When I asked about it, I'd get something like, "Oh, we thought you were focusing on transitions now." That's how it always started. Marginalize, minimize, erase. I didn't yell. I didn't complain. I just documented. When they pushed automated grading, I submitted a 10-page report breaking down the algorithmic gaps and how they penalized L students and special ed. No response. 3 weeks later, that same platform was adopted district-wide. At the next board meeting, Russell stood on stage and said, "We've built a scalable ecosystem that honors both efficiency and excellence." He didn't even look in my direction. I kept going. Quietly, I saved everything. Copies of every meeting memo, every slide deck, every consultant contract that went over budget. When they stopped looping me in, I started requesting public copies through internal policy. Every district employee has the right. They didn't notice, or they didn't care. The last report I submitted, my final evaluation draft, was a careful, honest breakdown of what worked, what didn't, and what needed real leadership, not branding. I emailed it straight to Russell's office with a clear subject line: Final recommendations, J. Stevens. The reply came 2 days later. 1 line. "We're moving forward." No signature, no salutation, just that. I didn't forward it. I didn't reply. I saved it to the archive folder on my home desktop and backed it up to 2 encrypted drives, just in case. Because I'd seen how people like him worked: rebrand everything, then act like history was an inconvenience. Wipe out the names that made it work, replace them with slogans. I remember sitting in the back of one of his vision talks where he spoke to parents about data-driven hope. He called the LMS a powerful reflection of our new academic era. I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. I was the one who designed that system. I was the one who held the whole structure together while he played politics and painted over cracks with buzzwords. But that's how it goes. People like Russell don't build anything. They rename what someone else built, stamp their logo on it, then cut the budget and call it progress. So I watched him expedite my exit like it was a check mark on his roadmap. He thought I'd just fade into a retirement brunch and some gift card. What he didn't know, and never bothered to ask, was that the system didn't care about titles or speeches. It only listened to structure, and mine was still very much alive. By 8:41 the next morning, my phone was buzzing on the counter. I didn't answer it. I already knew. The first lock always triggered at the gradebook level. I'd written it that way on purpose, low enough to look like a glitch, but central enough to make noise. A freshman English teacher at Oak Ridge High tried to enter scores for a vocabulary quiz and got kicked out with a red screen flashing, "Authorization mismatch." By 8:47, The entire history department couldn't upload lesson plans. A 10th grade counselor couldn't pull transcripts. College applications stalled mid-transfer. Nobody could figure out why the district portal was acting like everyone had the wrong password. District IT rebooted the primary server. Nothing changed. Then they tried to roll back to yesterday's backup. Same screen. That's when they opened the backend logs and saw the line that made them panic. Override access denied. JS key validation required. JS Joanne Stevens. It wasn't a signature, just an old internal tag buried in the authorization script. 10 years ago, I'd written it myself while building the curriculum master tree, back when no one else wanted to touch the LMS because the vendor documentation was garbage and the whole platform was duct taped together with third-party plugins. The call to Russell came at 9:02. He was probably still in his car, halfway through an overpriced protein shake, when his assistant patched in the director of systems. "It's requesting a key that doesn't exist," the guy said. "What kind of key?" Russell asked. "JS key. That's a legacy validation from, like, 10 years ago? It's not in our current directory." Russell paused. "Wait, Joanne Stevens?" "That's what we're assuming. It's embedded in the curriculum master control, and the whole system is referencing it for credential checks. So override it. We've tried. It denies every attempt. It's not a standard lockout. It's integrated. Like structurally." I imagined Russell in his pressed shirt and perfect tie, trying to wrap his head around the fact that the system didn't care about his title. What about admin root access? "Fails." "We even tried the vendor superuser account." "Same block. The script reroutes every credential through the JS gate." "What's the last modification log say?" There was a long pause on the line. "Master curriculum file, last modified, May 17th, 2015. User jstevens_admin. That file was the anchor. If it didn't pass the JS validation, nothing downstream would either. Grades, rosters, scheduling, college tracking, even the auto-sync with the state reporting module. It was all tied together. The system wasn't crashing. It was defending itself. Russell showed up at District HQ by 9:15, walking fast, tie loose, trying to look composed. Inside the server room, monitors lit up with repeated failure logs. Tech scrambled between terminals, while a senior analyst muttered, "She must have hard-coded the path into the version branches. That's why rollback doesn't bypass it." "You're telling me we can't even restore yesterday's settings?" Russell snapped. "Not without triggering the same JS request. It's hard-coded protocol. The validation key would have had to be entered by a current admin at the moment of role deactivation. And she's not current." "Nope. She was terminated at 8:13 a.m. yesterday. Logs confirm she never accessed the system after that." Russell rubbed his face like he was trying to wake up from a dream. "So what do we do? Right now? Nothing. We're locked out." The silence in that room must have been heavy, because for the first time, Russell realized the digital empire he built on PowerPoints and buzzwords wasn't his. It was mine. And the system had finally stopped pretending otherwise. By 9:30 a.m., the entire district was coughing. The attendance software blinked out first. Office secretaries couldn't log daily check-ins. Then student logins started timing out one by one, like falling dominoes. By 9:38, the math department at Eastbrook High sent an internal alert. No access to quizzes or assignment queue. Portal frozen. 10 minutes later, social studies teachers at 2 middle schools couldn't even open their dashboards. Counselors had no access to transcripts, student history, or post-grad planning data. IT tried restoring from 2 different backup points. Midnight and 6 a.m., same error both times. Authorization mismatch. JS validation required. They pinged the vendor. The vendor looked through their documentation, then sent back a single sentence. "Custom override protocol is not within licensed framework." Translation: they had no clue what was happening because I'd built the mechanism outside their prefab. System: all legal, all mine. Russell tried to get someone on the phone to fix it. His assistant called HR first. "We need to speak with Joanne Stevens. She's got legacy access credentials." "Can't," the HR rep said. "She's no longer an employee. You terminated her. Contact would be a policy breach unless reinstatement is approved." "So reinstate her. You'll need board approval for that?" Russell swore under his breath and hung up. By 9:45, the IT team had tried 6 credential paths, 3 override scripts, and a full system rollback. None worked. Each attempt triggered the same redirect to the gate I'd written into the framework years ago. It wasn't just an admin lockout. It was a principal lockout. The system had been designed to recognize one condition above all: unethical removal of core curriculum authority. If that happened, it buried itself. No workaround, no backdoor, no patch. Out the window of my kitchen, I could see the mail truck inching down the street like it always did, right on time. I poured myself another cup of coffee. Meanwhile, parents were starting to call. At 9:51, the main district line received 12 voicemails in under 5 minutes. Why can't my daughter access her AP assignments? The grade portal's down. What's going on? Is the school under attack? Twitter lit up by 10 o'clock. Screenshots of frozen portals, group chats of parents trying to figure out what to do, teachers whispering to each other about some kind of cyber breach. One post read, Oak Ridge system crash. My son's transcript is gone. Someone explain. By 10:07, the local news station tweeted, breaking. Oak Ridge Unified reports widespread tech outage. Sources say internal systems may be compromised. District-wide crash. Russell stood in the IT command room, pacing like he still had control. His shirt collar was untucked. 2 cups of coffee sat untouched on the table next to him. He finally barked out the order. Send her reinstatement paperwork. Now. At 10:12 a.m., a district courier left the main office with a sealed envelope addressed to me. Emergency reinstatement request, fast-tracked through HR with Russell's signature and a clause stapled on the back. We value your leadership and are requesting your expertise to assist in resolving the current district-wide technical disruption. No apology, no acknowledgement of what they'd done. Just a desperate offer to rehire me now that the machine was screaming. I was still in my kitchen when the car pulled into the driveway. The courier looked like he didn't even know what was in the envelope, just handed it over and walked off. I didn't open it, not yet, because I knew exactly what it was. And I knew, already, they were too late. I moved out to the porch with my tea, envelope in hand. The sun hadn't cleared the trees yet, and the cicadas were just starting up in the yard. It was quiet, the kind of quiet you only notice after walking out of chaos. I slit the top of the envelope open with my thumb. Emergency reinstatement request, temporary assignment, immediate compensation upgrade. And of course, we value your leadership and institutional knowledge during this critical period. I read it twice, then picked up the phone. Russell answered on the second ring. Joanne, he sounded out of breath. I was hoping you'd call. Look, we've got everything ready. All we need is your signature, and we can reverse the issue. I let the silence hang for a second. You can't. Yes, we can. Just authorize the override. I can't, I said. He paused. What do you mean? The protocol's activation window is closed. More silence. I heard movement, probably him walking into a quieter room. What window? The system only allows override from an active staff member at time of trigger. I was terminated at 8:13 yesterday. Trigger hit at 8:41. There's no rollback access now. You're telling me? I'm telling you the protocol did exactly what it was designed to do. Lockdown after unethical succession. That wasn't a bug, Russell. That was the whole point. He dropped the smooth voice then. This is catastrophic. We've got 6 campuses paralyzed. You don't want that on your name. It's not on mine. You're holding the district hostage over a grudge? I didn't raise my voice. I'm not holding anything. You fired me without notice, without review, without cause. You skipped my evaluation, pushed through a termination before the systems were even audited. You didn't read what I wrote. He was quiet again. You rushed the exit, I said. Now the system's doing what it was designed to do. Preserve integrity when leadership doesn't. You built a trap. Number Y built a safeguard, and you walked straight into it. He took a sharp breath. So that's it? You're just letting it collapse? I stood up and walked to the edge of the porch, still holding the phone. I didn't start the collapse, Russell. I just didn't stop it for you. You don't understand what's at stake. You don't understand what you inherited. This wasn't a tech platform. It was a living framework. Built on real work, not press conferences. He went quiet again, then tried one more thing. We can renegotiate. Compensation, title, oversight. You come back, we'll write it your way. I looked out at the yard, at the tea steaming in my other hand. You can't fix this with a contract. Then I hung up. No drama, no speech. Just one final click, same as the badge at the side door. By noon, over 60% of the district's digital systems were dead. Student info systems? Gone. Assessment trackers, offline. The LMS login screen was frozen on a rotating load icon, while panicked teachers clicked refresh, like it owed them an explanation. The IT team tried going analog, print rosters, rebuild gradebooks by hand, but half the younger staff had never taught without screens. They stood there stunned, asking where to even start. Manual gradebooks? Paper attendance logs? You'd think someone dropped them in the wilderness. Meanwhile, the internet did what it does best: screenshots from locked portals, emails from principals begging for guidance, comments piling up like wildfire under a single screenshot: district-wide LMS failure, admin lockout. District blackout started trending by 12:15. Bring Back Joanne followed 20 minutes later. I saw the hashtags when I opened my laptop, not because I was checking, but because my daughter texted me a screenshot. "They're losing it," she wrote. I didn't respond. Parents started an online petition at 12:40 p.m. with the headline, "We demand accountability and restoration." By the time news vans rolled up to the district office, it had over 2,000 signatures. On TV, the superintendent's office looked like a crime scene. Closed doors, security at the main entrance, reporters crowding the sidewalk with boom mics and guesswork. Then came 1:14 p.m. That was the moment the legal team dropped the bomb. The entire infrastructure, every lesson template, every assessment framework, every transcript formula was tied to protocols licensed under my name, not the district's, mine. They pulled the contracts, expecting to find language that gave them ownership. What they found instead was a quiet clause, buried in the back-end license agreement. Curricular system functions are licensed under JS Educational Strategies, LLC, contingent on ethical maintenance of original leadership roles. That clause had been signed by a former board member over a decade ago. The district never bought the system. They leased it, and the lease had a moral clause. The second they fired me without cause or due process, they breached it. Now they were locked out by their own oversight. Back at District HQ, one of the legal aides looked up from the contract summary and said, "We never owned any of this. We just assumed we did." Russell didn't say a word. He was in his office by then, blinds closed, tie off, staring at a wall full of laminated vision statements. The news picked it up by 1:30. Oak Ridge collapse, learning systems locked under private patent. District caught in licensing scandal after sudden firing. Teacher built the system. Then the system fought back. Outside, someone put a sign on the front gate that said, "Who's accountable?" in red marker. Inside, the board had no answer. They didn't understand what had happened. Not really. To them, digital systems were just tools, something to plug in and walk away from. They never considered that the whole thing was held together by intention, by architecture designed with ethics in mind, not just efficiency. But intention has weight. And when you pull it out from under the frame doesn't bend. It collapses. By 4:30, they hauled Russell into the boardroom. Emergency session, closed doors. 3 attorneys on one side, the full board on the other. No fanfare, no podium, no press. Just a long table, some bottled water, and a decision that had already been made. They read the charges straight: negligence, breach of contract, unethical termination of a senior administrator. No one used the word fired. The phrasing was cleaner: suspended indefinitely pending investigation. Russell didn't argue. He didn't speak at all from what I heard. He just sat there with his hands clasped like he was still trying to spin a strategy that hadn't landed, probably waiting for someone to save him with a better narrative. None came. The district's legal team laid it out. If they kept trying to touch the system, they risked full IP violation. The licensing terms were binding. My LLC held the core architecture. Any continued use without resolution could trigger litigation. At 5:02, the district office pushed out a notice. Due to unforeseen technical disruptions, students will be dismissed early for the remainder of the week. Translation: we're cooked. Teachers scrambled to hand out paper assignments like it was 1994. I got a text from a friend at Westfield High who said her department was using whiteboards and photocopies just to keep the kids from walking out. Meanwhile, parents flooded Facebook groups with updates and screenshots. And then, like sharks smelling blood, a competing edtech company dropped its campaign. Systems that stand with educators. Clean font, blue and white, right on the homepage of a district vendor page by dinner time. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Instead, I opened my laptop and posted one thing, just a paragraph. No logo, no signature block, no links. I didn't shut anything down. What I built was designed to preserve structure, not destroy it. If leadership transitions with integrity, the system adapts. If it doesn't, it holds its ground, not as punishment, as principle. I closed the laptop and set it aside. No comments, no replies. They could twist it however they wanted, but the facts didn't need editing. The framework didn't collapse out of spite. It stood its ground because the people running it stopped honoring what it was built for. And when you cross a line you never bothered to understand, you don't get to cross back just because the consequences finally showed up. Saturday morning, the mail came late. I was outside already, pulling weeds near the herb bed, when I saw the envelope sticking out from the side of the box. Cream-colored, heavy stock, handwritten name across the front in black ink. Inside, there were two things, a letter, and a small brass plaque wrapped in linen. The letter was short, 3 paragraphs, neat cursive. No official header, no logo. Just a note from the founder of a progressive school cooperative out in Oregon. "We've followed your work quietly for years," it started. "We don't want you to fix us. We want to build something better, with you." No job title, no pay rate, no multi-step hiring process or formal proposal. Just an invitation. I read it twice, then unfolded the linen. The plaque was solid, brushed brass, corners rounded, weighty in my hand. The inscription was only one line. "Structures worth standing on honor the hands that built them." I stood there holding it, sun on my arms, dirt still on my gloves. No part of me felt triumphant. There was no rush of revenge or some imaginary scoreboard tipping in my favor. What I felt was stillness, like something that had been on the edge of breaking finally settled into place. I walked the plaque out to the garden. The rosemary had gone wild on the far end, curling around the stones like it owned the yard. I found a spot just off the path, where the lavender still pushed through the mulch, and placed the plaque against the base of the bench I'd built last spring. Then I sat down. I didn't think about the board, or the emails, or the noise on the internet. I thought about the kids I taught who asked hard questions, who rewrote essays 3 times to make a point, who stayed after school to finish their FAFSA forms or research community colleges because no one at home had the time. I thought about the teachers who used to leave my office with fresh copies of frameworks they could actually use, not just directives from someone with a buzzword binder. I thought about my daughter. She called later that evening. "You really didn't crack, huh?" "No," I said. "Didn't need to." "Well," she laughed, "half my staff's quoting your last statement like scripture." I smiled, just a little. "Tell them to water the roots, not just the flowers." I didn't say yes to the cooperative that day. Didn't have to. Some offers aren't made to pull you in. They're made to remind you that what you built still matters. Tuesday was quiet, sky overcast. No wind, no birds, just still air and the sound of my own footsteps across the living room floor. I passed by the bookshelf on my way to grab the pruning shears, and something caught my eye. Bottom shelf, 4th binder from the left. Marbled black and white peeling spine. The same one I carried into every meeting for a decade straight. I pulled it out, laid it flat on the table. The cover was cracked, pages yellowed, but the handwriting inside was still clear. My notes, my diagrams, my flowcharts written in red pen. I flipped to the dog-eared page near the back, where the first version of the safeguard was sketched out. Trigger, unethical removal. Action, lock integrity protocols. Reset, only if departure is voluntary. No applause, no signature. Just a system built to hold when people let go. I didn't check the news that day. Didn't scroll, didn't click, didn't care. The collapse belonged to someone else now. The headlines would fade, the noise would die down. But the framework? That would outlast the chaos. That was enough. My phone buzzed around noon. I wiped my hands on a towel and answered. "Hey, Ma," my daughter said. Her voice sounded lighter than usual. "Hey, hun, you good?" "I'm great. Tired, but good. Something funny happened today." "Yeah?" "One of my students, sophomore, real smart, mouthy as hell, quoted you in class." I laughed. "What did I say?" She goes, "Miss, Stevens always said the job isn't to look smart, it's to be useful." Then she turned in a whole group project solo because the boys flaked on her. "That sounds about right. She's got that same stubborn streak," she said. "Wonder where she got it." I smiled faintly and looked out the kitchen window. "Water the roots, right?" "Always." We hung up, and I went back out to the garden. The herbs were overgrown again, mint creeping too far. basil seeding early. But I liked it wild, alive. I picked up the plaque from the bench where I'd left it, carried it to the stone wall behind the planter, and mounted it just above eye level. The brass caught the light through the clouds, clean and steady. Systems that protect the people who built them. That's all it had to say. I didn't tear anything down. I just didn't allow myself to be erased.